Hello my friends, and welcome to Paulina Art. In this video I'm going to be doing a demonstration on how I painted this portrait using the Rubens Oil Paint set. I did a review on this oil paint set. I'm going to link it up here somewhere. Now this is not going to be an oil painting tutorial. This is just going to be a demonstration on how I use this oil paint. I am not a portrait artist or an oil artist. However, I do enjoy doing portraits and painting with oils. To create this pretty abstract background for the portrait, I use the Mont acrylic ink set. I've also done a review for the acrylic set. I'm going to link it up here somewhere. If you would like to see how I created this oil painting portrait, stay with me and let's paint together. This is how I lay out the oil paint on my palette. My palette is just a tile, a long tile. You can purchase something like this, very inexpensive, from a hardware store. I have the white here, and I put my warm colors starting from light to dark. So I have yellow, yellow ochre, scarlet, and burnt sienna. And I move to the cooler tones. So I have cobalt blue, ultramarine. This is the green light. Some oil is still coming out from the tube because the paints are new. Here is ultramarine and the olive green, and here's the black. And I leave room at the front so I can mix my colors. I have an old face towel to clean your brushes, paper towels. Oil paint can be messy, and also have some kind of solvent to clean the brushes in between. So what I'm using today is Murphy oil. It's a wood cleaner, oil base, and actually it works really well to clean the brushes in between. This is specifically for oil, and I have some rocks at the bottom here. And when I put paintbrush here to clean it, the rocks help removing the paint. I just swirl it in here and then remove the excess of the oil on my towel. And the brush pretty clean to use the next color. So here's the background that I started last week with the acrylic inks. The only thing that I've done for this painting today is I did the drawing on the canvas with some pencil because it was so light with all the busy background. What I did is I went over with my liner brush and black acrylic paint so I can see the face on the background. Today is not going to be a tutorial but a demonstration, and this is going to be very painterly, maybe abstracty paint. I'm going to leave my palette here and I'm using oil paint. This is the Paul Rubens Oil Paint, and because the paint is very new, some of it is still quite oily. Some oil is coming out from the top, so I have a brown paper bag here at the bottom to absorb some of the oil. Now normally my palette would be flat on the table, but sometimes people request me, they want to see the colors that I use and that, so I'm going to leave them here while I'm painting and you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to be using a few brushes that are specially designated for oil painting. There's a couple of filbert brushes and a couple of flat brushes, and they are not super big, but they are in proportion with the size of the painting. I'm not 100% sure how this painting is gonna go. I think I might leave some of this abstract here, but I'm gonna start by putting a layer on the face and on the hair so we can see the face. And I'm going to make the flesh tones with white and some burnt sienna, some yellow. I don't have a recipe for flesh tones, and maybe a tiny bit of blue. Sometimes putting a cool tone will make it look more realistic. And I mix the colors as I go. I'm not the kind of artist that blends a variety of skin tones. I just like to go with the flow. An oil paint is very opaque, as you can see, so it's going to cover really well the background, which, like I mentioned earlier, I want to leave some of it behind the portrait, make it look more interesting, I think. I don't want to see these lines, the dark lines that I use with acrylic. Some of the olive green in the mixture to add shadows, kind of an interesting color instead of just using brown. the brush starts getting muddy, I just clean it. I don't have any solvent or anything. I don't like to use those products. So what I have here is Murphy oil. It's an oil-based cleaner, and I think it's doing a pretty good job. See how clean the brush comes out? I don't have a dark brown on this set, so I'm going to use some black. The blue has run down. I'm going to use some black with ultramarine. I don't like to use black by itself. I can also add a drop of burnt sienna to warm it up a little bit. You can also blend a little bit if you want with your fingers, because the paint is still creamy. Oil paint is very, very blendable, but be careful not to blend it too much. You can use the oil paint for quite some time before it gets dry, unlike acrylic paint, and I can use it for the next 2 days with no problem. Here is the final result using the Paul Rubens Oil Paint set. Now keep in mind all this was done a la prima, which means I sat down and painted all this as you've seen in the video. If I want to work more on this painting, I'm going to have to allow all this oil paint to dry and then come back and work more on it. I think I'm going to work more on the face a little bit more, but I do love all this abstracty around her and even in this area of the painting. If you would like to see more oil painting demonstrations, please let me know on the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. If you like this video, you know what to do. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one.